Welcome back to the shop. It's been a couple weeks since I've been able to get on and make a video. So what we've done is all the clear is on, and we're in the process of starting to sand and buff. I got the fuselage done already, and you can really see how the clear with the buffing has really come out really nice clear images on it. This color green really shows up in the sunlight. Really has a good effect. But so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dedicate this tape to kind of just going over how I sand and buff, and some of the things I do. But the fuselage is done, and what I'll be doing is I'll show you how I'll sand the stab out, and I'll buff it, and I'll show you my process. So. Alright, what up? Alright, so the stab, early this morning, I did one side. I sanded and polished one side, just to kind of really show you what it can look like. This side is on-sanded, so you can see the image on it is blurry. You see the light image, see it's blurry. If I flip it over, see how much clearer it is. So the clear, I did a really good job of laying the clear on, and it is shiny, and it is decent looking. But what I'm looking for is that really nice image in it, and if you can, like I said, you can see the actual light. You know, actually, if you're down here, you can see my ceiling. You get the light reflecting. What happens? You really see a clear image. Like if I look at it like this, I can see my face very clear. On the other way, I can see my face, but it's distorted. So we're gonna go through how I do this. So what I will start out was with 1500 paper. I use 3M usually or Dora, but I get 1500. I get a sheet, and I cut it up into little squares about 2 by 2 roughly, and I'll use that. I either use Windex or what M600 if you can get it. And what I found is this KW901 from Restoration Shop, Custom Series Shop, grease and wax remover. This stuff works very close to M600. I do have some M600 left. Alright, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand it down with 1500 first, then when I go to 3000, and then I go to this lapping paper, which is about 5000 grit. And I can show you the difference. Hopefully it'll come up on the camera. We can really get to see the difference in each sanding. But you can definitely notice a difference as you go up. So the first goal is you want to lay everything down flat with 1500. Then when you go with 3000, you're removing the scratches. Each grit that you go up in, you're just removing more and more scratches. So, but we'll get started. And like I said, what I do is I put it in a spray bottle. Got to get a heavy duty spray bottle, a good one, because this stuff will it'll eat up the pump inside of it. So what I'll do is I'll kind of just start. I usually use circular motions. I will go straight sometimes. So when I sand and buff a plane, some people will sand the entire thing out first. You know, with each one. For me, you know, I always say I'm going to do that, and it gets to a point where I need some what I'll call motivation. What I'll do is, let me wipe this off. And what I'll do is I'll sand, like, especially with a take-apart plane, I'll sand components, you know, with 1500, 3000, the 5000, and then I'll actually go buff it out. It kind of just keeps it inspires me, is what I'll say. So if you look now, that little bit of sanding, this is almost all down flat, and what you could do is candle it, and you don't want to see any gloss. If you see any gloss, those are low spots. So really now you're just sanding all that out. And the flatter you get it, the better the image is going to be, the better the finish is going to be on it. So you want to be careful on the edges, not to sand through. I always stay away from the edges. Like I will not go to the edge. I will not cut the edge because it will sand through. In this case, I happen to have a black leading edge, which is good. So, but you just gotta have caution there. And like I said, I'll come right up to the edge. I will not sand the edge. When you buff it, you really can't see the difference anyway. So far, I'm pretty happy with the finish. It is not perfect. There's a couple little things, which I'll go and touch up before the nats. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty good. It really has a tremendous shine to it. And like I said, you know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish getting this thing all sanded and buffed. And then I'll start flying it, trim flying it. And at that point, if I'm really happy with it, I'll go back and make those little touch-ups. You know, but what I found, you know, I always like to get the planes completely done before I fly them. But I also, sometimes I know when you fly them and trim them, sometimes you got to cut them open and there's things you find that aren't right. So, to start, I mean, this is a pretty good finish so far. Like I said, once I'm happy with how it flies, I'll go and make any minor repairs. There's a couple little spots I'm just not super thrilled with, and I'll show them a little bit. Like here, I'll show you an example on the tailpiece, which I was sanding this morning. If you can see, there's a spot right here where we had a high spot where it sanded through. I mean, it's in the white, so that's a real easy repair. But for now, when we just finish sanding it, and I'll buff this out. And then after I fly it a little bit, and I'm happy with the trim, I'll go back and touch that up. But there's a couple spots like that where there's some things just not happy about. So what I really like about this stuff in M600 is the fact that it's a really good lubricant. It keeps the paper clean, but then when you wipe it, it dries very fast. Windex is good, but it takes a little longer to dry. I do recommend wearing a glove with this stuff, or M600, because it will dry out your skin, especially if you're doing a whole day of sanding. So, and even Windex will dry your hand a little bit too, but not as aggressive as this stuff. And so I'm very careful on the edge. I'm not cutting the edge. I'm running up to the edge. So I did get a new mic. I got a microphone. My dad got me a microphone for my birthday, so thanks, Dad. My mom and Dad, I should say. So hopefully the sound quality gets even better. We'll see. A little improvement. So each cut of paper gets a little bit harder to tell when you're sanding. Like the first cut, this first cut, as you can see, you can feel it in the paper, and you can see you get the spottiness as you cut through. You can feel the paper as you cut through it, and it sounds different as you cut into certain areas. When you get to the 3000 now, what I'll say is you'll actually feel it. It'll sound a little different the first couple cuts until you get it all more of those scratches out, and then the same thing with the 5000 each time. So what you're doing is, to make sure you get all the area sanded, you kind of have to, it's a little bit of a feel thing. I mean, you can hear some of it, but it's really a feel thing to like, is the paper still gripping? So I do is turn the paper a little bit each time, trying to use up each piece of paper the whole way. I mean, this is where you have to have, this is the time where you just have a little more patience than normal. Okay, so now it's all flat, but then what I'll look down at, you can see a couple little spots here and here where it is. Let me just, so move the camera down a little bit. And what you're looking for is it to be perfectly, what I'll call like a perfect bone or matte finish. And I recommend on your table you put down foam, or an old comforter is good. I have one that's in the garage somewhere, but in this case I have some half-inch foam, 2 sheets of half-inch foam down, just to really, one, to let the pieces kind of grip into the something, and also not to damage them. So what you're looking for, you want to look down it and you want to see a clear image. The clearer the image gets. Like right now I can see it's pretty clear. I can almost read the stuff on the wall. I don't know how well you're going to be able to pick it up on this. But you can see how the image is getting better. Right, so this is dull, but you see how you can see the outline of the lights better. You can see the difference already. And that's only 1500. So I look at this is all pretty good. There's a couple. If you got to look at different angles, you'll find a couple spots where so what I would say is things to think about. Start on the bottom usually, so you get your rhythm, you get exactly what you want. But what I would say is really spend the extra time on the top. The bottom, you can kind of get away with not being perfectly flat. But the top, that's really where you want it to see, because that's what everybody's going to see. I try to do it on top and bottom, but all right, so that's pretty good right there. All right, so next paper is I'm using Dora P3000. So this is where I'm talking about the feel. So how do you know you sanded it? Because you'll feel the difference. Like the paper will grab and then it stops grabbing. And you can hear a little bit difference in the sounding noise. I'm going to see if I can, I don't know if it'll come up on camera, if you can see the difference between the 1500 and the 3000. But I know you can definitely see the difference between the 5000 and 3000. Let's see how that works. So if you look at your candle, you can actually see that the area I sanded with the 3000 is shinier. I don't know if you're going to be able to pick it up on the camera. So it is a 3000 area, and then if you see down to the 1500, see how the image changes a little bit. But you can notice a difference if you really look at a difference. Where I stopped right here, this has a little bit more of a shine to it. And again, if you do the work with the 1500, the 3000 is pretty straightforward. It's really one pass, probably, maybe two. Right, you're just removing scratches at this point. So the material's flat now, and now you're taking scratches out for each paper. And again, the edges, and even around the tips, I generally don't sand the tips as much because it pretty much shines already. I'm just always worried about, those are the spots I'm worried about sanding through. All right, and then every once in a while you got to change your paper towel too, because you'll see the piece doesn't get as clean. There's a spot over there. And a 3000 will cut. If you have a couple of what I'll call shiny spots, you can just pound those areas with the 3000, it'll come out. And what's nice is you run your finger over those checkers, you do not feel they're there. Made sure I put enough clear in those spots. All right. Now, this is the 5000 paper. This is what they call, it's called lapping paper. Some people call it lapping. It's pretty expensive a sheet, but you don't use a lot of it. Like this whole one sheet will do the stab easily. And again, this is where you're going to feel all of a sudden it gets real easy to sand. You'll feel it and the noise will change on you. And this is really just, all you're doing is removing the scratches from the 3000. You're just setting up the next side. Stick it to that. So this paper is really thin. Like I say, you can actually feel and hear the difference the areas you sanded. And really, areas you want to work with this paper a lot more than anything that's black or dark, because you want to get out all those sanding marks. The checker area, you want to spend a little more time in there. But again, you can hear this. So here's one. We'll see if I can show it. And again, you're just sanding in there. Now let's see if we can see the. So when you're done with the 5000, it's a dull shine. It's almost like a hand buff. I mean, I can literally look in here. I can see shiny, 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 and then a little bit dull. And if I look down at the image, it got even cleaner. So if you see there, see how pretty clear that is? Down here, it's a little less clear. I mean, obviously, the video camera doesn't do it justice. But you can actually see the difference. Like, it shines with the 5000. And if you keep going with more paper, obviously the shine will continue. But really what you're doing is you just keep continuing to remove scratches. So this is probably you spend the most time. This is the time where you're going to spend a lot of time just doing a lot of sanding. Really just straightforward labor at this point. But what I will say is probably the most rewarding point of it. And, like right now that panel has some shine to it. Like I can look down it. I mean, I could probably take some hand polish and even bring that up even more. So you do the majority of work with the 1500. Alright, so we'll sand this other side. So try to use circular motions. And again, the flatter you lay the clear, the easier this will be. If it wasn't flat and it was, I'll say a lot of overspray in it and everything else, it takes longer. Good as you can still get the same finish, it just requires more labor. So I always really try to lay the clear down as flat as possible. And I happen to use Chroma Clear, or the old Chroma Clear, I guess, from DuPont. It's a 4-to-1 mix. So what I do is I will reduce it almost 80 to 85%, even 100% reduction. It really comes out like water. And what I do is I put on usually 3 to 4 coats on. It allows me to put on more, but it obviously comes out really flat. And, overall weight gain from the clear on this plane was 1.5 ounces with 4 coats of clear on it. Urethane clear. Again, reduced, a lot. So about 1.5 ounces, and with the sanding and buffing, I'll take off probably I'll probably take a 1/2 ounce off. So clear and all total will be about 1 ounce. And then off the fuselage, I took out 0.1 of an ounce. So if I can take 1.1 of an ounce off that, take 0.1 of an ounce off each wing, and then you add up the other stuff. I mean, I should be about, I could probably take 1/2 ounce off, maybe a little shy of 1/2 ounce. Again, just continuing to work it down until it's flat. And darker colors really help. You can really see the difference between flat and shiny. So that's good. When you get into the lighter colors like white, it's a little bit harder. And you really have to candle the parts to kind of look down them to see where you missed. But white is also what I'll call a very forgiving color. And again, I'm not pushing on the edge at all. I'm running it up right to the edge. I'm not cutting the edge because that you will cut right through the clear and the color. On this plane, I'm lucky because it's black, so it really won't show. And if you did sand through a spot, that's an easy touch-up with a marker that nobody will ever see. So again, just keep working it. This is just time consuming, but if you get it down flat and you use all the different grades, when you go to buff it, it'll buff right up. It'll pay for itself in the time you're spending on it. Okay. Got some more work to do in there, it looks like. Okay. Alright, so we'll go to 3,000, and I'm probably good with the same piece. And again, I keep turning the paper, trying to get... And again, sometimes I will go in motions like that. I'll circle it motions, trying to change up the scratch more. Okay. It's not bad. So now we're all sanded out. Take a look. Get a pretty good image on it. It's like a dull shine, I'll say. And now what I do is take some Windex just to clean it off. The edges, just wipe it down good and clean. Because there is grit or clear dust in that. So took me about 25 minutes or so to sand that piece out. Alright, so now on to the polishing. So I've been using this stuff. This is from Chemical Guys Wet Mirror Finish. This stuff here, this is green looking stuff. I've been using this. I also used in the past this Mirror Glaze, this 205 stuff. Pretty good stuff too. So I use this first, and then I'll come over with this other Chemical Guys, this Perfection Polish stuff, P4 from Chemical Guys. I got all the stuff I get on Amazon. So I'll mix this stuff up. And what I use a little machine buffer. This is actually a DeWalt sander. With a 3-inch pad on it. Got this on Amazon. It's actually a sander, had a bunch of attachments which I took off. So I don't love the foam pads. These type of pads. I always find you get scratched in them, but sometimes I'll use them. I'll use them on the second stage of it. I found the best is like these lamb's wool, small lamb's wool ones. What I'm doing right now is just cleaning it off. Sometimes what I'll do is the middle will puff up a little bit. And I'll get a pair of scissors and cut it. Or lay it down. Okay. Alright. So actually what I'll do is I'll take a foam pad to kind of just... because I don't want the stuff shooting all over the shop. Put a good coating of polish on. Otherwise, when you go to hit it, it shoots all over the shop. Alright, so what I'll do is... So wipe all the excess polish off. So this polishes it really good to begin with. It's really good. I like to use the other stuff to kind of continue to just drive scratches out of it. I look for areas that I didn't polish enough, like this edge here needs to be a little more polished. Okay. So I use a little bit softer pad now for the other polish. Like 3 or 4 inch pads I'll get. I happen to have that with a 4-inch pad. So even now the shine is really up on it. So you really look down and it's really starting to shine up. And this other stuff really, to me, kicks it up a little bit more. So we do wipe off the excess. I don't know how well it's going to come up on the camera, but you can see a noticeable difference between each side. Well, I call it noticeable, but see how clear the light is in it? And if I flip it around to do it in the same area. See, it's not as clear, but you can definitely start to see the depth in it. Makes a huge difference. I mean, and it really glides. So I tried just going straight to this stuff. It's not the same. You got to cut it with something first, and then this. So you be real careful around the horn. So remember, when you're buffing, you are creating heat, so don't hold it in one spot because you will pull. It will start to pull up some of the finish if you're not careful when you're using a machine. Alright, so then I got some stuff that takes it off. I'm trying this stuff for the first time. It's a quick effect coating. I got it from Amazon. It's SOPAMI stuff. I don't know what you can see there. But this stuff is pretty good for cleaning it up. So it's like a quick detail to get off any bit of compound that's left over. Alright, and that's how I will buff and polish this whole plane. And again, it's, for me, I always like to sand a few, get a part sanded and then polish it. It just keeps the momentum going for me, because it reminds me that this is what the final outcome is going to be. But yeah, so there's, so that was about 30 some odd minutes, 35 minutes start to finish on the stab. And I mean, it is really glossy. It's hard to, I mean, you can literally, I could read stuff off the wall. You can see your face clearly imaging it. So, and that's how I do it. Alright, so I'll do the rest, I'll do a lot of it off camera. Maybe I'll come on and show some of it. Maybe I'll show the wing panels. But, so hopefully you liked the video. If you liked it, click the like button, subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe. Again, I'm just trying to share what I do in the hobby, and there's many ways to do this as well. So, but I'm pretty happy with the outcome so far. I hope the plane flies as good as it looks. Alright, so thanks for watching. And we'll talk next time.